I never thought my wedding morning would feel like this. People always say it's supposed to be butterflies and champagne, like a fairy tale coming true. But in reality, it's nerves that won't settle, a dress that suddenly feels too heavy, and the ticking of a clock that seems louder than my own heartbeat. I stared at myself in the mirror, veil half-pinned, lipstick still in progress, and tried to convince myself that I was ready. I loved Ethan. God, did I love him. He was funny, he was kind, he was the only man I could picture growing old with. But even with that certainty, my stomach wouldn't stop twisting itself into knots. That's when the door opened. At first, I thought it was one of my bridesmaids coming back with coffee. But no, the shift in the air told me immediately who it was. The sharp click of heels, the faint whiff of perfume that was expensive, but just slightly too strong. My future mother-in-law, Linda. She stepped into the bridal suite like she owned the place, arms folded, lips pursed, her expression somewhere between funeral director and CEO about to fire me. The bridesmaids went silent instantly. Hair straighteners paused mid-air, mascara wands hovering like we'd all been caught in a crime. Her eyes locked on me. And then, in a voice so calm, it made my skin prickle, she said, "Sweetheart, it's not too late to back out." For a second, I thought I'd misheard her, that my stressed-out brain had invented something dramatic just to mess with me. But no, her lips didn't twitch, her brow didn't soften. She meant it. The room froze. My maid of honor, Jenna, actually mouthed the words, "What the hell," behind her. I tried to laugh it off, a weak, nervous chuckle that came out more like a squeak. "I'm sorry, what?" Linda stepped closer, her heels clicking against the tile, her eyes never leaving mine. "You heard me. You still have time. The car's outside. No one would blame you if you changed your mind." Every muscle in my body locked tight. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, but now I felt like the main character in a thriller. My hands clutched at the satin of my gown like it was armor. "Linda," I managed, my voice thinner than I wanted, Are you actually serious right now?" She tilted her head, her smile as polished as it was cold. "I'm only saying what any good mother would say. Marriage is a lifetime, a vow you can't undo. If there's even a single doubt in your heart, it's better to run now than regret later." My bridesmaids exchanged wide-eyed looks. Jenna actually stepped forward, her mouth opening like she was ready to go full defense attorney on me, but I gave her a look to stay back. I wanted to scream, but instead I forced my voice to stay even. "I don't have doubts." Linda's eyes narrowed, like she was evaluating my answer on a scale. You say that now. But don't say I didn't warn you. When you find socks in places socks should never be." It was such an odd sentence, so specific, so bizarre, that for a moment I almost laughed. Almost. But her delivery was deadly serious, like she was revealing some great, terrible prophecy about my future husband. She straightened again, looking around the room, and added in her normal, louder tone, "Well, I'll leave you to it. Just think about what I said, dear." And just like that, she turned and walked out. The door clicked shut behind her, and the air rushed back into the room. Jenna practically exploded, slamming her hands on her hips. "What was that? Did she actually just tell you to call off your wedding on your wedding day?" I tried to steady my breathing, staring at my reflection again. My cheeks were pale, my eyes wide. My veil suddenly felt like a trap instead of a crown. Another bridesmaid muttered, "That was low-key terrifying." She sounded like she was casting a spell. I tried to smile, but it faltered. She doesn't want me to marry him. Saying it out loud made my chest ache. "No," Jenna said firmly, shaking her head. "She's just being Linda. You know how she is." But I did know. And the truth is, Linda had always been like this. Serious, controlling, impossible to read. Still, this was something else entirely. I lifted my chin, forcing my shoulders back. I love him. Nothing she says changes that. Nothing. The words came out stronger than I felt, But in that moment, I knew I had to hold on to them like a lifeline. Because if I let Linda's warning sink too deep, if I let her voice echo louder than my own heart, I'd break. And I wasn't going to break. Not today, not for her, not for anyone. When I pictured my wedding day, I always thought the hardest part would be the vows. The moment I had to stand up in front of everyone and spill my heart out without crying, shaking, or sounding like a teenager reading her diary. I never imagined the hardest part would be surviving Linda before I even walked down the aisle. As the bridesmaids tried to distract me with chatter and makeup brushes, my mind drifted back to all the moments that had led here. All the small battles I'd fought with her in the months leading up to this day. The seating charts, the flowers, the music, the guests. God, the guest list. Most couples fight about who to invite. Friends from college, coworkers, random family members you only see at funerals. But for Ethan and me, the problem wasn't us. It was her. Linda treated the guest list like a national security document. Every time I thought we'd finalized it, she showed up with edits. I remember one night, sitting at the kitchen table with Ethan, a glass of wine in my hand, spreadsheets open on my laptop. I was exhausted, but relieved. Okay, I said, I think we finally did it. 200 guests, balance between both sides, no duplicates, no strangers. And then the phone rang. Ethan answered, his shoulders tensing before he even said hello. Yes, Mom, he sighed, meeting my eyes with that guilty little smile that always meant trouble. I didn't even have to hear her side of the conversation to know what was happening. Yes, Mom, we can't invite your hairdresser's nephew. We've never even met him. Pause. Yes, I know you say he sings beautifully, but that's not... Mom, no, he's not performing at the wedding either. I'd rolled my eyes so hard I almost gave myself a headache. When he hung up, I was already pouring him a glass of my wine. Well, I asked. She says we forgot to add her cousin's cousin, he muttered, taking a sip. Her cousin's cousin? That's not even a relative. That's just a person. She says he'll be offended. I'd slammed my laptop shut. You know what? Add him. Add the whole town. Let's just throw a parade and invite every person who has ever made eye contact with your mother. He laughed, which made me feel a little better, but in the end, we did end up inviting the cousin's cousin and the hairdresser's nephew and Linda's old college roommate, just in case. So, sitting there in my bridal suite, hours away from walking down the aisle, I realized half the people waiting for me in that church were strangers, handpicked by Linda. My wedding had slowly turned into her personal networking event. Jenna, who had witnessed all of it from the sidelines, leaned over now and whispered, "At least the cousin's cousin didn't RSVP." I let out a humorless laugh. "Don't jinx it. He could still show up." She grinned, but her eyes softened. She's just overbearing. Once this is over, she'll calm down. She has to. I wanted to believe that, but the memory of her words, "It's not too late to back out," still clung to me like smoke. This wasn't just about overbearing behavior. It was about her not wanting me there at all. One of the bridesmaids piped up, trying to lighten the mood. "At least the flowers turned out perfect, right?" Perfect, right. Except Linda had fought me on those too. I'd wanted wildflowers, soft, colorful, imperfect, something that felt natural, like us. Linda had insisted on white roses. Classic, elegant, not cheap, she sniffed. When I pushed back, she'd tilted her head, eyes sharp. "Well, of course, if you wanted to look casual." Casual, like my dream wedding was a backyard barbecue. In the end, Ethan had stepped in, insisting we compromise. So now the bouquets were mostly roses, with a handful of wildflowers tucked in like they were smuggled past customs. I told myself to let it go, but looking back, it wasn't about the flowers. It was about control. Linda wanted every petal, every chair, every single guest to be hers. And now, standing here in this suffocating dress, I realized she might actually want the whole marriage to be hers too. The bridesmaids kept chatting around me, but I barely heard them. My chest felt heavy again, my reflection pale and worried. I thought about Ethan, about how much I loved him, how certain I'd always been. And then I thought about Linda, about her serious eyes and her warnings, about how she'd said it with such calm confidence. Maybe she was trying to scare me, maybe she was trying to protect me, or maybe, just maybe, she was trying to convince me that she was the only one who truly knew Ethan, and I was walking into something I couldn't handle. The worst part? For a split second, she almost had me convinced. By the time the music downstairs started, my hands were trembling so badly that Jenna had to take my bouquet and hold it for me. "It's just nerves," she whispered, trying to soothe me. But it didn't feel like nerves. It felt like Linda had gotten into my head, set up camp there, and was whispering her warnings on repeat. I told myself to focus on Ethan. That always worked. Think about his smile, about how he looks at me like I'm the only person in the room, about the way he leaves silly notes in my coat pockets when he knows I'm having a rough day. Think about the way he proposed, so awkwardly sweet, with a ring box that wouldn't open until he nearly broke it with his thumbs. But of course, the moment I thought about Ethan, I remembered the parts Linda had hinted at, the quirks she dangled like red flags, the socks, the cereal, the late-night Netflix binges, and suddenly I could hear her voice again, cold and steady. "Don't say I didn't warn you." I shook my head, trying to block it out. The door opened again, and this time it was Ethan. He wasn't supposed to see me before the ceremony, but he slipped in anyway, his best man Liam guarding the whole way outside like a lookout. "Hey," Ethan said softly, his eyes immediately finding mine. His smile was nervous, his tie slightly crooked. God, I loved him. But his hands were shaking too. He tugged at his sleeve, then rubbed the back of his neck. "You okay?" I nodded, but he tilted his head, unconvinced. "You're pale," he murmured, stepping closer. I let out a laugh, but it was thin. "So are you." He grinned sheepishly, admitting, "I might have spilled coffee on my tux earlier. Twice." "Twice?" He shrugged helplessly. I was stressed, and then I forgot which cup was decaf. That was Ethan. Even on his wedding day, nerves turned him into a walking disaster. I almost smiled, but before I could say anything, his mother's voice rang in my head again. "Don't say I didn't warn you." I flinched, and Ethan frowned. "What is it?" "Nothing," I said quickly, forcing a smile. "Just pre-wedding jitters." But he saw through me. He always did. His thumb brushed my hand, warm and steady. "We're in this together, okay?" And for a moment, I believed him. Then, of course, the door swung open again, and Linda swept in. Her eyes went straight to Ethan, scanning him like a drill sergeant. "Stand up straight, fix your tie, and for heaven's sake, stop sweating. You look like you just ran a marathon." "Nice to see you too, Mom." He ignored him, turning her gaze on me. "And you, remember, you don't have to do this." The room went silent. Again. Ethan groaned, dragging a hand down his face. "Mom, seriously?" Linda looked between us, perfectly calm. "I'm only saying what everyone else is too polite to say. It's not too late. For either of you." Liam poked his head in from the hallway. Pretty sure no one else is saying that, Linda. Just you." She shot him a glare sharp enough to cut glass. He vanished. Jenna crossed her arms, stepping forward like she was about to start a fight. "You can't just walk in here and tell the bride to back out. What's wrong with you?" Linda arched a brow. "What's wrong is pretending marriage is a fairy tale. I'm trying to be practical. I know my son. I know what it's like to live with him. You don't. Not really. Not yet." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "He still calls me when he can't iron his shirts properly. Did he tell you that?" Ethan groaned. "Mom." Linda ignored him. "And he eats cereal at midnight, every night, like a raccoon rummaging in the dark." I blinked. Caught off guard. She had said that before, but hearing it again in front of Ethan with such straight-faced seriousness, it was almost absurd. Ethan threw up his hands. It's not every night. It's like 3 nights a week. Tops. Jenna snorted behind me, quickly turning it into a cough. Linda sighed, like she was some tragic oracle, burdened with terrible foresight. Don't say I didn't warn you. The room went silent again, but this time I had to bite my lip hard to stop from laughing. It wasn't funny, not yet, but it was starting to feel ridiculous, like Linda was rehearsing lines from a melodramatic play. Ethan caught my expression, and for the first time that day, his nervous grin turned genuine. "See?" he whispered. "This is why I love you. You don't run away when she gets dramatic." But I wasn't sure if I was brave or just too stunned to move. Linda finally smoothed her dress, satisfied with her performance, and headed for the door. "I'll be seeing you both at the altar, if you make it that far." And then she was gone again. The room sat in stunned silence for several seconds before Liam's muffled voice came from the hall. "What is wrong with your mom, dude?" Ethan groaned, burying his face in his hands. I pressed my palm against my chest, forcing myself to breathe. I loved him. I loved him. I loved him. And if I kept repeating it, maybe I could drown out the sound of Linda's voice in my head. The music started, the doors opened, and suddenly, all the oxygen in the room felt like it had been sucked out of my lungs. Everyone turned to look at me as I walked down the aisle, every head swiveling in slow motion, every smile blurring together. I searched for Ethan at the altar, and the moment our eyes met, my knees stopped shaking. He looked terrified, sure, like someone had told him the wedding cake was gluten-free and he just remembered he was violently allergic to commitment. But underneath all that, he looked happy, deeply, stupidly happy. And despite everything Linda had whispered, I was too. When I reached him, he mouthed, "Hi," like it was our first date all over again. I mouthed, "Hi," back, biting back a laugh. The officiant cleared his throat and began, "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." It was going beautifully, peaceful. For a glorious, fleeting 3 minutes, nothing exploded. Then Linda coughed, loudly. Everyone turned their heads. She wasn't even trying to hide the fact that she'd stood up in the middle of the ceremony. "Sorry," she said, holding up a hand. "Just before we continue, Maya dear, I just want to make sure you know what you're getting into." The crowd chuckled. Everyone assumed she was joking. Everyone except me, Ethan, and anyone else who'd been in that dressing room. "Mom," he hissed under his breath. "I'm just saying," she insisted. "This is the man you'll wake up next to. The man who eats cold pizza for breakfast on purpose. The man who alphabetizes his sock drawer but can't remember where the car keys are ever. The man who once called me at 2 a.m. because Netflix asked, 'Are you still watching?' And he said, and I quote, 'I don't know if I am anymore.'" The entire room erupted, full-on laughter. Even the officiant had to cough into his sleeve to hide a grin. Ethan's ears turned scarlet. "Mom!" "Oh, don't mom me. You told me once you'd marry anyone who accepted your 2 a.m. cereal habit, and I'm just checking that she's aware of the terms and conditions." I couldn't stop laughing, like actual tears in my eyes laughing. It was ridiculous and inappropriate and absolutely humiliating, and yet so him. "I'm aware," I said between giggles, "and I accept." Crossing her arms, she said, "Even the part where he eats cereal out of a salad bowl because he refuses to admit we don't own big enough bowls? Especially that part." The crowd cheered. Someone actually whooped. Ethan covered his face with both hands. The officiant, bless him, tried to steer us back. "Well, it's clear this union comes with a lifetime supply of breakfast food. Shall we proceed to the vows?" We nodded, still laughing. Ethan went first. He unfolded a slightly crumpled piece of paper, cleared his throat, and looked at me with those soft, terrified eyes. "Maya, I know I'm not perfect. I leave socks everywhere. Like, everywhere. I once found a pair in the fridge and I don't even remember putting them there. I eat cereal at 2 a.m. because I can't sleep without it. I once watched all 9 seasons of a show just because Netflix kept asking if I was still watching, and honestly, I wasn't sure if I was, but I didn't want to let it down. The guests laughed again, but Ethan's voice grew steadier. But I love you more than I love any of those things, and I promise to keep choosing you, even on the days when the milk runs out, or the Wi-Fi is slow, or the socks go missing. Especially then. I was laughing and crying at the same time. The good kind of cry. The kind that makes your cheeks hurt. My turn. I took a deep breath. Ethan, I promise to love you exactly as you are. Even when you refuse to watch a movie because it's rated below 7 on IMDb, even when you claim pizza is a food group, and especially when you call me into the kitchen to show me a cereal hack you saw online that is just cereal in a bigger bowl. The guests were doubled over. Linda looked smug, like this was exactly the chaotic wedding she'd been predicting all along. And weirdly, I wasn't mad at her anymore. She hadn't ruined the moment, she'd made it real. Imperfect, hilarious, honest. By the power vested in me, the officiant began, barely containing his grin. I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your cereal-eating, Netflix-binging, sock-losing groom. Ethan leaned in and kissed me. And in that messy, ridiculous, laughter-filled moment, I knew I'd made the right choice. The ceremony was over, the photos were done, and I thought maybe, just maybe, we'd finally get a few hours of peace. Then we walked into the reception. The DJ announced us like we were celebrities, which felt ridiculous but fun. Ethan squeezed my hand, grinning so wide it looked like his cheeks might split. We did our awkward little first dance shuffle, trying not to trip over each other's feet while everyone cheered. For a blissful 3 minutes, I thought, okay, we survived it. Smooth sailing from here. And then came the speeches. My maid of honor, Jenna, went first. She was sweet, funny, heartfelt, exactly what you'd want. She told the story of how Ethan once tried to cook me a romantic dinner and set off the smoke alarm with garlic bread. Everyone laughed. Ethan buried his face in his hands. It was perfect. Then came Linda. The room quieted instantly, like everyone sensed something dramatic was about to go down. Linda stood with her champagne glass, regal as a queen, eyes sparkling like she'd been waiting for this moment. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice smooth and commanding, "as the mother of the groom, I'd like to say a few words. But first," she turned to me, raising a brow, "Maya, I did warn you." The crowd chuckled. Linda didn't miss a beat. "Ethan is a wonderful man, truly, but let's be honest, he is also the man who once ate an entire large pizza by himself and then called me prying because he couldn't find the remote." The laughter grew louder. Ethan groaned. "He is the man who alphabetizes his sock drawer but has no idea how to operate a washing machine. He is the man who watched an entire documentary series just because Netflix threatened to stop playing it if he didn't answer." People were wiping tears from their eyes. Even the DJ was doubled over. "And Maya," Linda continued, looking me dead in the eye, "you are now legally responsible for this man-child. Don't come crying to me when he insists cereal counts as dinner, or when you find stocks in the freezer. Don't say I didn't warn you." She raised her glass dramatically. "To Ethan and Maya, may your Wi-Fi always be strong, may your pizza always arrive hot, and may your marriage survive his quirks." The entire room roared. I clinked my glass against hers, laughing so hard I nearly spilled champagne down my dress. Ethan leaned in and whispered, "I'm never forgiving her." "Oh yes you are," I whispered back, because that was comedy gold. And just when I thought things couldn't get wilder, the dinner service began. The first course was supposed to be elegant, little appetizers, tiny, fancy bites, but Ethan had snuck something onto the menu without telling me. When the waiters came out, half the trays were pizza rolls. Literal pizza rolls. The guests went nuts. People were trading their shrimp skewers for extra rolls. My uncle stuffed a whole handful into his napkin for later. The caterer looked like he wanted to resign on the spot. "Did you?" I asked Ethan, narrowing my eyes. He grinned sheepishly. "I wanted it to feel like us, imperfect and delicious." Linda, of course, had commentary. "Well, at least he didn't put cereal on the menu. Progress." The rest of the night turned into pure chaos. The DJ misread the playlist and accidentally played Baby Shark during our cake cutting. A toddler started a conga line, my cousin spilled red wine on the dance floor, and instead of cleaning it up, everyone started calling it the wine slip-and-slide. And in the middle of all that insanity, Ethan and I sat back at our table, holding hands, watching the madness. "This is insane," I said. "This is us," he replied. Linda passed by just then, patting my shoulder. "Don't say I didn't warn you, Maya. Don't you dare." But the twinkle in her eye told me she wasn't trying to scare me anymore. She was just being Linda. Sarcastic, dramatic, impossible Linda. And somehow, I realized I loved her for it. The reception should have calmed down after dinner, but no, it only got weirder. The DJ announced the start of the dancing, and for about 5 glorious minutes, it was normal. The lights dimmed, couples swayed, my bridesmaids screamed to every word of an early 2000s pop song. Ethan and I even managed a respectable slow dance without tripping. And then my Uncle Greg tried to moonwalk. I don't know how else to describe it except catastrophic. His shoes squeaked so loudly it drowned out the music, and halfway through he lost his balance and collided with the cake table. The cake tilted like it was in slow motion, the entire room gasping. Somehow, by divine intervention, the cake didn't fall, but Uncle Greg did, right into the DJ booth. Suddenly, the speakers blasted static like we were at a rave in a thunderstorm. I pressed both hands to my face. Ethan, of course, was doubled over laughing. Linda appeared at my side like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. "Maya, sweetheart, last chance to back out. We can still annul this thing before dessert." I laughed so hard I almost cried. "Linda, it's a little late for that." She sipped her wine. "I warned you." The bouquet toss was next, and I thought, surely this part will be safe. Wrong. I turned around, tossed the bouquet over my head, and instead of landing gracefully in the crowd of single women, it hit the chandelier. It hung there for a solid 10 seconds before crashing down directly into the arms of Linda. The room exploded. Linda raised it in triumph like she'd just won the Super Bowl. "Well," she announced, smirking, "if this doesn't prove I run the show, I don't know what does." Someone shouted, "Next wedding's on you, Linda." And she bowed. Meanwhile, Ethan had disappeared. I found him 10 minutes later at the dessert table, balancing 3 slices of cake and a plate of, you guessed it, leftover pizza rolls. "Ethan," I whispered, trying not to laugh, That's not even logical. You're mixing cake and pizza rolls." He looked at me like I was the crazy one. "Sweet and savory. It's the perfect combo." Linda swooped by just then, muttering, "See? I told you he was a handful. Don't say I didn't warn you." The dance floor turned into utter bedlam after that. Someone's toddler decided to climb up on stage and grab the microphone. He started belting out what I think was supposed to be "Let It Go," but honestly sounded more like a cat in distress. The crowd went wild. Ethan joined in with him singing backup, while the DJ just shrugged like, "What can you do?" By the end of the night, the dance floor was sticky with spilled wine, my dress had a pizza roll stain, and Ethan had convinced 3 of his groomsmen to recreate a boy band routine they'd clearly made up on the spot. It was chaos. Beautiful, ridiculous chaos. Linda cornered me as things started winding down. She leaned in conspiratorially. You know, Maya, I wasn't joking when I told you to be careful with him, but she smirked. At least life with him won't ever be boring. And when you come crying to me after he alphabetizes the condiments in your fridge, just remember I warned you. I laughed so hard I almost cried. Linda, it's a little late for that. She sipped her wine. Oh, don't worry, I will. And for the first time all day, her voice didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like family. By the time the reception wound down, I was barefoot. My dress had at least 3 mysterious stains, and my cheeks hurt from smiling. The tables were littered with half-empty champagne glasses, crumpled napkins, and abandoned pizza rolls. The DJ had switched to a chill playlist, which mostly meant love songs from the 80s, and people were finally trickling out. Ethan and I slipped outside for air. The cool night breeze felt like a blessing after hours of sweaty dancing and too many hugs. I leaned into him, resting my head against his shoulder, and for the first time that day, the chaos fell away. "We actually did it," I whispered. He smiled, tired but glowing. "Yeah, we survived Linda." I laughed softly. "And your sock habits, and the pizza rolls, and the bouquet incident." "Hey," he said, mock offended. "The pizza rolls were a hit, admit it." I sighed, smiling. They were. For a moment, it was quiet. Just us under the string lights, catching our breath, feeling the weight of the day settle into something softer, something real. Of course, that's when the door burst open. It was Linda. She marched out, bouquet still in hand like she'd claimed it as a trophy. "Don't sneak away without saying goodbye, you two." "Mom," Ethan groaned, but there was no bite to it. Linda looked at me, her expression softer than I'd ever seen her. "For what it's worth," she hesitated just long enough to make me nervous, "you make him happy. Happier than I've ever seen him. And for that, I'm grateful." I blinked. For one terrifying second, I thought she might actually cry. But then she smirked. "Still, don't come crying to me when he eats cereal out of the salad bowl at 3 a.m. Don't say I didn't warn you." Ethan threw his hands up. "Mom!" I burst out laughing, the kind of laugh that shook the tension right out of me. "Don't worry, Linda," I said, grinning. "I wouldn't dream of it. But if he ever tries to alphabetize my spice rack, I will be at your doorstep." She raised the bouquet like a glass in a toast. "Deal." And with that, she swept back inside, leaving us in the glow of the string lights, shaking our heads and laughing. Ethan kissed my forehead. "Well, guess we're officially stuck with her." "Guess so. But honestly, I think I'm okay with that." And as the music drifted through the open doors and laughter carried across the night, I realized something important. Weddings don't have to be perfect. They just have to be real. Messy, chaotic, pizza roll filled, Linda warned, real. And that was exactly the kind of love story I wanted. The wedding was over. The chaos, the laughter, the pizza rolls, the bouquet incident, all of it behind us. Ethan and I were officially married. And yet, a week later, I woke up to find socks on the kitchen counter. On the kitchen counter. "Ethan!" I shouted from the hallway, holding them up like evidence in a crime scene. He peeked out of the bedroom, hair a mess, still half asleep. "What?" "Oh, those? I was making cereal last night and don't you dare finish that sentence." He grinned sheepishly. "You married me anyway." I rolled my eyes, tossing the socks into the laundry basket. Married him anyway. He was right. We were back to reality now, which meant grocery shopping together, figuring out how to merge our Netflix profiles without losing his precious algorithm, and learning that apparently a large pizza is not in fact meant for one person, or two. Every time I opened the fridge, there were leftovers. Always. And Linda, of course, was still very much in the picture. She called on day 3. "So," she said, skipping any pleasantries, "how's married life treating you? Has he alphabetized the cereal boxes yet?" "Not yet," I said, "but he did try to convince me Frosted Flakes count as dinner." "Don't say I didn't warn you, Maya. I did tell you." On day 6, she showed up unannounced with a casserole and a brand new laundry basket. "You'll need this," she said, plopping it down like a housewarming gift. "Trust me." Ethan groaned. "Mom, stop scaring her." Linda smirked. "I'm not scaring her. I'm preparing her." Difference. But as much as she teased, I could tell she was softer now, less like she was warning me to run, more like she was making sure I knew what I'd signed up for and secretly rooting for us to survive it. Late one night, as Ethan and I curled up on the couch with mismatched socks, cold pizza, and a Netflix show neither of us were actually paying attention to, I realized Linda was right about one thing. Life with Ethan wasn't going to be easy. It was going to be messy, loud, chaotic, but boring? Never. And honestly, that was the best warning she could have given.